We do have a quorum. First item of business is approved minutes of prior month's meeting. Please raise your hand. Motion by Brad McGowan. Do we have a second? Second by Gene Merlino. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Privilege of floor. Anybody got anything to bring up before we start the regular agenda? Seeing none, we'll go right into the action items. Request, Jackie Figueroa is going to talk about Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Jackie, it's all yours.
Good morning. We have a policy that went out with the agenda that is a federal law that we have to follow, but there were a couple of options within that policy where the county needs to determine which direction we want to go in. So the version you have today is what I've recommended, but I want to just speak to the points that were optional. So everybody's going in eyes wide open. The policy is broken into two parts, which is the expanded family medical leave, which provides up to 12 weeks of leave to care for your child because their school or place of care is closed. And the other part is emergency paid sick leave. The emergency paid sick leave is very mandated and what we need to do. The flexibility comes in under the expanded family leave. So if you, on the second page of your policy about increments and intermittent use of leave, the Department of Labor gives us the option of whether or not to allow incremental use, intermittent leave. I've met with the treasurer's office. I've spoken with Mary. I've spoken with a couple of department heads, and we think because they're recommending maximum flexibility from employers, we are recommending intermittent use in full day increments. We could change the increments, but from an administrative standpoint, it would be difficult because you're paid at 2/3 of your normal rate. So if you're taking 2 hours in a day versus the full day, you'd get it's just much more complicated to break it into smaller than full day increments. And usually if it's going to be a childcare issue, it's going to be a full day problem. So we elected to do intermittent use, full day increments. And then the next section of pay during leave, we had a couple of options. What we have elected
Jackie,
to do. Oh,
Jackie,
yep.
When you say next section, where are you on your sheet?
I'm on the second page of the policy under pay during leave.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. There were options available in this area as well. You'll see in the policy what I'm recommending is, and again, this is for the expanded family leave. The first 10 days are unpaid. An employee can choose to use their accruals if they'd like to, or they can use the emergency paid sick leave, which is addressed in the second half of the policy. And then after those first 10 days, we have the option of either just starting them on 2/3 pay or having them use their earned accruals. I put in the policy that we're going to have them use their earned vacation and personal time. We've had a lot of questions and concerns from department heads. People have been continuing to accrue time off while being home on paid administrative leave. How am I going to get all these vacations scheduled? I feel like to be responsible, having people use their own time for just their vacation and just their personal. If they have, hours and hours of sick time because they've worked here a long time and they've kept it, we're not requiring them to use that because they're not actually sick. They're taking the time to care for their children. So I just wanted to point that out as well. What I'm recommending is having people use those two types of time before it goes over to the 2/3 pay for the remainder of the 12-week period. As you can see, there's a lot of moving parts. If somebody's taken any previous FMLA, that counts towards the 12 weeks. There are a lot of moving parts, but I think, between my office, The treasurer's office, we've worked out a good system for tracking it, keeping note of it in Nova time so that we can stay right on top of it. And so far, we've only had a couple of employees come forward with issues who are asking for intermittent use just in case their backup plan, which is now their primary plan, falls through for some reason for a day here or there. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of anybody? No? Brad? Go ahead,
Is this all been, I mean, do we have to go through the union on this?
We, not as far as whether to follow the law. These are federal laws that are in place from April 1st to December 31st of this year. So it's across all of the unions and the out of unit people. It's a federal law we have to follow. Initially, I think the guidance was we didn't necessarily even need to adopt it in a resolution because it's a federal law and we're just following the law. However, the treasurer's office pointed out correctly that because there are optional pieces of it, they wanted to make sure the board approved of those optional pieces.
Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you, Chairman. The towns will have to institute these as well.
Yeah, yep, I believe it applies to the towns as well. It's municipal employers aren't excluded by a size limit.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Driscoll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Jackie. I've heard from a few families who have moved children with developmental disabilities, not considered to be children. They may be in their 20s or 30s back home. In addition, I've heard a few families who have moved elderly parents in with them during the pandemic. Would those individuals still be considered immediate family as far as this is concerned?
A dependent, even if they're an adult, if there's a medical reason that they're still considered a dependent, yes, that would be covered. As far as parents, you know, I know a lot of people also brought their parents home from nursing homes and things. They're not covered under this emergency leave section, but they would be covered under probably just regular FMLA.
Okay.
If there's a medical reason that they needed care and help.
Great, appreciate it, thank you.
Supervisor Bramer?
Thanks, Supervisor Garrity. Jackie, have you done a survey to see how many people are at home still that are needing childcare once the county opens back up and we have employees coming in more? No,
I haven't done a survey to that effect. As departments have opened up, the employees that have issues have just raised their hand and said, here are my concerns.
Okay.
Most people have, from what I'm hearing, just anecdotally, is they have, you know, a series of grandparents and neighbors who are, you know, they're working together some kind of schedule for care for their child. So just in the event that grandma is sick one day and I have to stay home, I just, you know, they want to make sure that they have this intermittent leave lined up for those instances. You know, most people, luckily, you know, myself included, we could kind of see this coming. So we had some weeks and months to say, oh no, what am I going to do with these kids this summer? I was planning on a rec camp as well. So I think people, you know, have just tried to come up with a plan B.
Okay, thanks.
Supervisor Bramer, any more? Anybody else?
Yeah. So can I just ask one thing to understand the overall concept is for 10 days, if they're out, they have to take their own personal time or vacation time. Then after that, it'll kick in for 2/3 of their pay up to 10 weeks.
12 weeks.
The first 10 days are not covered under, let me get my words right, expanded family leave, but they can be covered under the emergency sick leave. So there are two components of this. I did send out this little example sheet. I don't know if Anybody can see it has a little chart on it.
I did
Um,
see the chart and I had no idea what was going on.
So if you look at that in the first 10 days, we are saying this person's going to elect to take the emergency sick leave. So that would be their 2 weeks of pay under the emergency sick leave. At that point, they would have to use their vacation time, their available vacation time. In this instance, the person only has 40 hours. So we took 1 week of vacation for days 11 through 15. And then starting on day 16, they would get the 2/3 pay for the extended paid family leave.
Okay, I see that now. Thank you. That's a big help.
Any other questions? Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. Jackie, two quick questions. One, I'm online on the public information that you have as the agenda backup, and I guess I'm still just wondering, where is that optional information? I know Claudia asked about it earlier, but looking at this, it all looks like it's just the federal law.
This is the draft that I'm proposing. I didn't do like the separate paragraphs of the different options. I was just going to speak to those. I can email them out after this if you'd like. It's taken me a minute to get my head around it. Honestly, there's so many moving parts
I bet.
that I put the example together for myself just because I'm like, how does this work? What is this?
Right. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, that would be really helpful just before, that way I can reach out to you with questions about the part that's optional that this committee approves before the full board vote. But also, would it be helpful to be able to do like Claudia suggested, like a formal survey for you as the head of HR to know approximately how many employees might fall within this category? Or
I think it's hard because we would have to survey all employees. Not all employees have kids. The ones who do have kids, I mean, it's so different for every family. Mine are 10 and 14. My 14-year-old is very responsible. She can watch the little one. It's fine. But some people would never leave their 10-year-old alone with a 14-year-old because the kid is a different kid. So just to try to narrow it down to which people have what age range of kids. And then if you get into
right. I guess, and if you don't mind, Chairman Garrity, just one more question off of that, because you bring up an important response, Jackie. Do you feel like our employees, they're aware, they'll be aware of this, that we'll be able to get this information out and let people know, what options are there?
I think they are aware of it. It's been, when it was approved back in March. It was part of the first big set of laws that came out from the federal government. We've had posters up in the buildings since then. We just didn't put the policy language together because at the time, initially the county was closed. People were on paid administrative leave, and the county had already adopted administrative leave for people on quarantine. And that was the first initial, the important thing. People are getting sick. What do we do about that? Mm-hmm. And then once we found out schools were not going to reopen and, day camps aren't going to be open this summer, I've found from talking to people with little kids, preschool, before kindergarten are okay because they were already in a daycare. Their daycare never closed. It's the kind of the middle, the kindergarten through 6th grade, however old you feel comfortable letting your kids stay home. Those are the ones that they don't have a full-time daycare set up that are kind of trying to figure it out now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So I think what we're looking for is a motion to approve to bring this up to the full board. Is that it, Jack?
Yes.
So somebody want to make a motion to move this forward to the full board? Motion by Mr. McGowan. We have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Frazier. Any discussion? All those in favor, show of hands. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Looks like the ayes have it. Okay. John, anybody chime in on public comment yet?
No, Chairman Garrity, no public comment.
Okay, next, I've had a request for an executive session to discuss litigation. Can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss litigation? Civil litigation. Motion by Supervisor Merlino. Do we have a second? Second by Supervisor Frazier. All those in favor, show of hands. Opposed? Any opposition? Okay, we're going to litigation. So Any public comment? Anybody wishing to publicly comment? Don Lehman, anybody want to dial in? Don't hear any. And I'll ask those people who have questions, if you kind of take them up amongst yourselves, that would be good. Motion to adjourn.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I do have a
So
question.
don't talk in public. Okay.
Go ahead, Supervisor Seamer, you have a comment?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Back in January, I asked Personnel Committee about a Roberts Rules training. I asked again by email to the entire board. I've asked it again publicly. I'm wondering if you would please assist me with having that training scheduled either by Zoom or, for a future in-person date, but to get a date on the books. It concerns me that there seems to be a lot of different interpretations of Robert's rules and the rules of the board. And I think the majority of us were in agreement that there could in fact be a training and that one was needed.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don Lehman, anybody commenting on the line?
No, sir, there's no public comment on YouTube.
Okay, we had a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We're done.